20 years from now, when you look back at Silicon Valley's biggest rises to the top and subsequent downfalls, there will likely be none that top the story of Theranos. With an authoritative name that blended the words therapy and diagnosis together, the company and its success over everything, media-hungry and eccentric founder Elizabeth Holmes were supposed to revolutionize healthcare with a product that seemed impossible, infeasible, and unviable. And these innovations, well, on paper anyway, they shot the company to the top of the unicorn list, launching Holmes' reputation as a Silicon Valley superstar. Some would say that the bigger they are, the harder they fall. And this is especially true when a skyscraper is built on a foundation made of paper. And that's exactly what Theranos was, just a huge house of cards. So how does a company go from being a medical industry innovation leader to being a joke among the Silicon Valley community? And how does a seemingly brilliant and tenacious founder end up with a life that mimics a scene from The Orange is the New Black? Well, you're gonna wanna buckle down for this one because it's a wild ride. Let's get it. Theranos is the brainchild of entrepreneurial-minded and possibly brilliant founder Elizabeth Holmes. Her rise to the top started way back in her childhood. At the age of only 9, a relative asked her a question that we all probably remember from when we were young. Elizabeth, what do you want to be when you grow up? And while many of us would have said a pro baseball player, the president of the world, or an astronaut, her answer kicked off what would be a by any means necessary attitude that would guide the events of her life over the next several decades. Her answer back wasn't to be a movie star or some hotshot lawyer. Instead, all she wanted to be was a billionaire, with a B. If you fast forward a little bit, you will realize that she got exactly what she wished for, but not without some big time scandal and drama. If you take it out of context, her achievements would really be considered pretty extraordinary. At one point, she was considered by Forbes as the youngest and wealthiest self-made billionaire, earning her billionaire stamp before her 31st birthday. Now that's impressive. But look, I won't lead you on, because you wouldn't have clicked on this video if you didn't know where this story was going. And yes, it all goes bad. Very bad. But before it went bad, things seemingly went great. So let's talk about the good old days. Stanford University graduates many future innovators, and that's also where Elizabeth Holmes started her journey. Inspired by her grandfather, Christian Holmes, a surgeon, Elizabeth felt a connection with the medical field. But since she was scared of needles, she decided to go into chemistry instead. In 2003, she dropped out of school to start Theranos, a company that seemed decades ahead of its time. The idea came from all of her passions and all of her fears mixed into one. It combined her ambitions towards medicine, her background in chemistry, and her fear of needles. She set out to develop a solution that could use one drop of blood from a finger prick to generate medical results that would otherwise require multiple draws of blood. You know, like when a doctor takes a vial of blood to run your blood work, for example. I mean, it sounds like a great idea, right? Well, her professors weren't so sold on the idea, and almost all of them told her that it wouldn't work. But come on, when does doubt stop an entrepreneur? She was committed, and their doubt only gave her more fuel to prove them wrong. At only 19 years old, she founded Theranos, and success became her sole focus. And through her research, Holmes developed a proprietary technique that did exactly what she hoped for. It provided detailed and accurate blood test results from just a single drop of blood. Imagine going to your doctor for a physical, but when they tell you it's time to take your blood, they pull out a small finger pricker instead of a long needle and vial. And you get to skip the whole part of them slapping the middle of your arm to find a vein. I mean, truly, it really was a game-changing idea that would have progressed the entire medical industry. She was so confident about the potential of the technology that she claimed it could perform tests for cholesterol, blood sugar, and any other type of blood test, ranging from simple assessments to complex genetic analyses. And remember, that's all with one single blood drop. I'm sure that you're asking the same question that everybody asked. If this is possible, why hasn't it been done before? I mean, why do you need several milliliters of blood if only one drop is really required? Well, if you're skeptical, don't worry, you're not the only one. The answer is that blood tests really aren't as simple as just looking at a sample under a microscope. Chemicals are added to the blood sample for each test. So to avoid contamination, a fresh sample is required for each additional test. Initially, medical professionals just weren't buying it. I mean, yeah, it would be amazing if it actually worked, but it really just wasn't passing the sniff test. However, that's when Elizabeth showcased her greatest strength of all, The power of persuasion. She convinced Larry Ellison, the founder of Oracle, Tim Draper, the founder of VC firm Draper Fisher Jurviston, and several other big names to invest in the company. And this backing eased doubts throughout the entire medical community and the general public. By 2010, only 7 years post-launch, Theranos had already raised over $92 million in funding. Believe it or not, they even had the former Secretary of State George Shultz as a member of their board of directors. But here's where she began setting up the magic trick, and she definitely had a few things up her sleeve. And when it came to her investors, Holmes had something like a protective shield or an invisibility cloak like you see on Harry Potter. She was more than willing to accept investment, but only under the condition that the investors didn't ask exactly how the technology worked. But the truth is, it's not really uncommon for businesses like that to hold trade secrets to themselves. So for some reason, this condition really didn't create any red flags to Theranos' early investors. As Theranos' investment grew, so did Elizabeth's persona as a business titan. And as if she was possessed by a spirit, Holmes began emulating her idol, Steve Jobs, maintaining a strict work schedule without vacations, wearing monochrome turtlenecks, and allegedly even deepening her voice when she speaks in order to seem more intimidating or more authoritative or something. I really don't know. Maybe she just listened to a few Barry White CDs and it caught on or something. Anyways, Theranos and its CEO seemed unstoppable. The company secured outside partnerships from the likes of Capital Blue Cross and the Cleveland Clinic, and they even established a deal with Walgreens to open Theranos testing centers in their stores. And if you're wondering just how well it was working out for Elizabeth Holmes, well, at the time, she was the youngest self-made woman billionaire and had a net worth of around $4.5 billion. Yes, with a B. So what went wrong? Well, making big moves attracts one thing: media. And when the media starts digging, it's likely that they're gonna find all of those bones that you thought you buried deep enough in your backyard. The deal with Walgreens, while it was great, it also marked the start of the unveiling of Theranos' major house of cards. In 2013, when they announced the deal, it was major news. And without a doubt, the announcement made early skeptics, well, even more skeptical. And while Elizabeth Holmes was receiving a ton of press attention, which she loved, she didn't realize that it would be that same press that will uncover everything that she'd hidden from the beginning. And the person that would eventually take Theranos down was John Carreyrou, an investigative journalist and reporter from the Wall Street Journal. I would bet that she thought the media was on her side, but you'd be surprised at how that backfired. Forbes, which named her as the youngest and wealthiest self-made woman billionaire in 2015, named her as one of the most disappointing leaders of the world just 1 year later. The rapid rise and fall happened just that quick. While she was celebrating being on the top of the world at the young age of 31, John Carreyrou was busy at work. He received some interesting information from several former Theranos employees and immediately kicked off his investigation. Through interviews with several former employees, Carreyrou learned that the technology was extremely faulty, and that was only one of the problematic details that he was exposed to. But Holmes, she wasn't gonna go down without a fight. She immediately decided on a revenge strategy, kicking it off by threatening Carreyrou and his informants with legal action. The employees of Theranos banded together behind Holmes, viewing John as an enemy and chanting, "F you, Carreyrou," anytime that he was in their presence. Holmes quickly realized that Carreyrou really wasn't one to let a few threats and taunts make him back down. In 2015, just shortly after she was featured by Forbes for her excellence, Carreyrou published an article explaining how Theranos' technology constantly spit out inaccurate results. And as an added smack in the face for all those investors who didn't question the technology, the article revealed that Theranos was actually using machinery developed by other manufacturers, but presenting it as if the data came from Theranos' own systems. But Carreyrou didn't stop there. He published several articles showcasing the results of his investigation, and he even wrote a book called Bad Blood: Secrets and Lies in a Silicon Valley Startup. In this book, he provided his evidence, proving that the company was fraudulent, relying on faulty technology, and possibly putting hundreds of patients at risk with inaccurate or unreliable data. Holmes, of course, denied all the claims and allegations. The same day that Carreyrou published his article, she appeared on CNBC's Mad Money, where she promised that the company would transparently justify the accuracy of all of its tests publicly. Sounds good, I guess. To try and discredit Carreyrou, she called the Wall Street Journal a tabloid and claimed that the article was both inaccurate and brutal. She also said, quote, This is what happens when you try to change things. First they think you're crazy, then they fight you, and then all of a sudden, you change the world. End quote. And I guess you could say she exaggerated a bit there, because if you're gonna change the world, you probably need to do more than just gather up a bunch of pre-existing technology and then lie to everyone as if you've done something spectacular. And especially in a field like medicine where people's lives are on the line. Unfortunately, that's not how you change the world. In fact, that's really how you end up in prison. In January 2016, the Center for Medicaid Services inspected Theranos' California-based laboratory, and they ended up sending them a warning letter after observing several irregularities with the efficiency of the staff, faulty procedures, and of course, unreliable equipment. The Silicon Valley Titan ended up with a 2-year ban from owning or operating any certified clinical laboratory. How did she respond? Well, you guessed it, she went right back to the media. She jumped on several programs and channels, interviewing as much as she could, hoping to lessen the impact of the situation. In these interviews, Holmes said that she was devastated that they didn't catch and fix the issues, and she promised that the lab would be rebuilt with the help of a new scientific and medical advisory board. Yeah, okay. Fast forward to 2018, and the Northern District of California ended this 2-year-long investigation. They convicted Elizabeth Holmes and her boyfriend, Ramesh Sunny Balwani, who served as both the COO and president, with 9 charges of wire fraud and 2 charges of conspiracy to commit wire fraud. They were charged with fraudulently misrepresenting the company and its technology to their investors. And on a more serious note, they would have to pay for the risk they put doctors and their patients in. With charges looming over her head, Holmes resigned from her position as CEO. In 2019, she announced that she was planning to press charges against Mr. Balwani for emotionally blackmailing and abusing her. Now look, I can't say whether these allegations are true or not, but I can say that as a master manipulator, I'm sure that Holmes will use any tactic to shift the blame and attention from herself to someone else. Then, after her attempt to pass the blame failed, she tried a new tactic. In September of 2020, Bloomberg News reported that she was exploring a mental disorder defense, and she was attempting to use that as an excuse for her crimes. The courts allowed her to be evaluated by professionals, but the records were then sealed. So maybe we'll just never know whether she actually suffers from a mental disorder or not. But unless greed is a mental disorder, I would bet that defense won't work either. That brings us to today. Right now, Holmes is in the middle of a trial facing 20 years in prison. Now, we don't know what the outcome will be, but I'm pretty sure it'll involve 3 square meals, an orange jumpsuit, and 23-hour lockdown. But even if somehow she manages to beat the case, her reputation as a Steve Jobs level innovator will forever be stained red because of unethical behavior, lies, fraud, and deceit. Well, that wraps up today's story. If you like this kind of content, make sure that you hit the like and subscribe button below and ring the bell so you don't miss any of our updates. Until then, take care and keep creating amazing shit.